Good evening. How are you all? Hey. Good. So I got asked a bit of a weird question the other week. I got asked to name my 3 favourite science facts. And for me this is a bit strange because I don't really do those kind of favourites and lists and things like that. You know, what's your favourite pet? What's your favourite colour? Well, it depends on context, you know, whether it's the colour of my steak or the colour of my socks. Actually, in that case, it's both pink, obviously. This is St Andrews. Or, you know, you've got sort of, you know, what's your favourite food? Well, again, context, you know, because I could eat my favourite food forever, and then it really wouldn't be my favourite food. I'd be sick of it, and that sickness would probably be gout. But so I had to have a think, and I thought, what are my favourite science facts? And so I came up with my first one, and that is, there are some scientists who think that babysitting is the reason that menopause has evolved. Yeah, you see, it's a really lovely theory. It's called the grandmother hypothesis. And basically the idea is that at some point in the past, there's sort of 1 or 2 women lived a bit longer than women normally did, and they got to look after their grandchildren. And that bit of extra help, because I mean anyone with a Facebook feed at my age knows that babies are useless, aren't they? They're basically just kind of big blobs of flesh, and they remain that way until, well, basically until they're undergraduates. And so these grandmothers could help their grandchildren, and they survived a bit better, and gradually, of course, the genes got passed down. And so you think, well, why grandmothers? Why is the focus here about the evolution in grandmothers? Well, that's because at the age of 50, about 53, women just hit menopause. After that, they're, evolutionarily speaking, useless. Absolutely useless. Because old men, if you think of your granddad, there's still sperm being produced in his balls. Yeah. And you know, until we did proper pelvic floor exercises or Viagra, the method of delivery wasn't that great, but you know, the sperm production was declining at roughly the same rate as his hearing was disappearing, and the hair on the top of his head was moving onto his back, and that bit in your brain that tells you not to fart in public was gradually shutting down. Whereas for women, you know, it's just this one big click. Your reproductive system has now turned off. So it's called the grandmother hypothesis, and it's really lovely. It's a really uplifting kind of idea. Unfortunately, it's probably nonsense. There are loads of simpler evolutionary theories. You see, because evolution is a bit like the music industry. It's obsessed with youth. It favours random chance over talent. And basically, it's overly dependent on a few old males who've basically fucked everything. So that was my first big scientific idea. And my second one, I thought, well, I think about what I do. So I'm a primatologist. I play with all kinds of primates. I go and work with chimps and capture monkeys and people on the phone, and lemurs and children. And some people from St Andrews go off to lovely exotic wild places. I work with them in zoos, or nurseries as the teachers keep on telling us to call them. And I'm basically interested in the way that we solve new problems and the way that we learn from one another. And so my second fact is that children are surprisingly stupid. And the reason for this, I'll give you one example. A few years ago, some colleagues of mine, they decided that they'd show some 3-year-old children how to solve a complicated puzzle. And what they did was they got this box that had some stickers inside it, and they got a tool and they tapped the top, and they rattled some things and they turned some things, they opened a door and out popped a sticker. But actually all they really needed to do was open the door and the sticker was there. Yeah, psychologists are dicks. Yeah. But quite frankly, psychology experiments over the last 100 years or so, teaching children a slightly less efficient way of getting a sticker is one of the least dickish things that we've done, isn't it? So they gave them an opaque box, so you couldn't see that all these things were weird, and they gave them a clear box. And in the clear box, you could clearly see that all of the tapping and the rattling and everything else just wasn't needed. You just opened the door and took the sticker out. And so they gave it to some 3-year-old children who were really good at learning from one another, usually, And they found that what these children did was they picked up the tool and they tapped and they rattled and they wiggled, and then they opened the door. I thought, well, maybe these 3-year-old children haven't quite worked this out yet. We'll show it to some 5-year-olds. The 5-year-olds watched what the demonstrator did. They picked up the tool, they tapped it some more, they rattled it, they wiggled it even more than the 3-year-olds. So they thought, oh, we'll try 8-year-olds. No. We'll try 13-year-old. No. We'll try 15. No. We'll try undergraduates. No. No. They tried it all around the world. Humans, all around the world. Wander up to it, tap it away, wiggle it, and eventually they found a group that doesn't do all of this, that just realises all you need to do is open up the door. Ladies and gentlemen, that group are chimpanzees. So there we go, that's our 2 facts. I thought, oh, I better think of another fact. There must be something else. There must be another interesting fact I can think of. So I thought about, well, what do I do each day? Well, I stand around in the zoo quite a lot. And one of the things you learn at the zoo is not to listen to the visitors that much. Because particularly when you're in the chimpanzee enclosure, and you see a chimp wandering around on the frame, and a family will come wandering along, and immediately one of them will just stand there, point to the chimp and be, oh, look at his bum. You just want to go up and say, I'm sorry, that's not a him. And that's not a bum. No, because you see, ladies and gentlemen, that is a primate punani. That is a chimp cha-cha. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a monkey minky. And these huge red things on their back, they're sexual swellings. That is their fanny. And that varies in size and colour over their cycle. So when they're menstruating, it's quite small and quite dark. And when they're ovulating and when they're at peak fertility, it's a huge, bright red beacon of promiscuity. And so, ladies and gentlemen, my final point was, well, there we go. A final scientific fact. If you're a chimpanzee male, you love some lavish labia. There's nothing you like more than a colourful clitoris. What you really adore is a garish gash. And so, I told her these 3 facts. Old women are basically useless, but they might be good at babysitting. Children are really quite stupid. And chimpanzees love massive meat flaps. And she thanked me very much, and she closed her notebook, and the articles never appeared. Thank you very much.